Can you hear that? No, neither can I. Mr. Dawes is otherwise incapacitated for a couple of weeks, so it's up to me to steer the good ship Crime. The show's all mine.
This is Partners in Crime with Adam Croft and...
Not the other one. Yes, it is just me on sole hosting duties this week, and likely next week as well. Mr. Dawes appears to have got himself a bit of a proper job. He's away filming, I believe, for the next couple of weeks, so you're left with just me, and trying to do witty banter on one's own is not really an easy thing, but I'll do my best. It's probably worth mentioning that doing things like what I've been reading this week and having a bit of a discussion about crime doesn't really work on your own, does it? So what I'm going to do is probably dive straight into the interview today. We've got a fantastic one coming up with Mr. Stuart Bache. Now, he's not a name that most readers would necessarily know, but you would certainly recognise his work if you saw it. He's a book cover designer. He's designed covers for the likes of Stephen King, John le Carré, Lionel Shriver, and many of my own books as well. He's a really, really brilliant bloke. I love him to bits. He's a fantastic cover designer as well, and he's going to be speaking to us about some of the inside things from the industry, things that readers don't necessarily always know or consider, the things that go into cover design. It's actually really, really interesting. So fascinating chat with Stuart. That'll be coming up very, very shortly. It's worth me mentioning as well that this podcast is very, very kindly sponsored by Kobo, the world's favourite local bookshop perfected. I love Kobo. I do all of my reading on my Kobo e-reader. I find it's far better than other unnamed e-readers in many other ways, and they're also a great company to deal with if you're an author too. So if you want to get 90% off of your first ebook purchase from Kobo, head over to kobo.com, find a book that tickles your fancy and enter the promo code CRIME at the checkout. That's an exclusive 90% discount off your first Kobo purchase, exclusive to listeners to Partners in Crime. And you don't need a Kobo e-reader either. I have one because I think they're great, but there's a free Kobo app for your iPhone, for your Samsung device, whatever it is you use, or for your tablet, or even for your laptop. So head over to kobo.com, use the promo code CRIME at the checkout, and enjoy your exclusive 90% Partners in Crime discount. Well, the banter's going to be a little bit limited, I'm afraid, because it's quite difficult to banter with oneself. So I think it's about time we headed over to speak to Mr. Stuart Bache. Stuart Bache is a cover designer who's worked for some big-name authors such as Stephen King, John le Carré, and some bloke called Adam Croft. He's been an art designer for many, many years, working for HarperCollins, for Simon & Schuster, Little Brown, and Hodder, as well as many other big publishers. And I'm delighted that he joins me here on Partners in Crime today. Hello, Stuart.
Hey, Adam. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. Well, I wanted to get you on for a while because, as you know, I'm a big fan of your work. I use you for my covers, for my books, and always absolutely amazed by what you come up by. But it's not just kind of crime and thrillers that you design. You do a whole range of things. It must be nice having some variety in the day, I guess.
Yes, that's true. Well, I'm kind of known for the more sort of action thriller and the sort of psychological thrillers and crime and that kind of thing. But I do like urban fantasy. I do a bit of that as well, and it's a little bit different. They're all kind of have different thought processes behind them. Different tropes. And I've done children's. I worked for Puffin for a while. So I've done all sorts. I think it's good to be able to turn your hand to as many different sort of genres as possible, really.
Yeah, and the tropes were something I wanted to touch on, actually, because speaking to readers a lot, people often mention to me that, covers, there tends to be some trends and some tropes, as you say. Crime, you tend to get the blood and various different things there. Action thrillers, you've quite often got somebody with their back turned to the camera running away. As an author, I know that there are reasons why this is done, because people can kind of see straight away what genre the book is without having to kind of look on the back and find out what type of book it's going to be. So yeah, I suppose to talk a bit more about that, I suppose. I mean, I've got a little saying I always use, which is that you should never judge a book by its cover unless it's a book.
That's true. I mean, I've always said when people say that, I thought, well, if people didn't judge books by their covers, then I'd be out of a job. I don't know what I'd be doing with my life if I'm honest. But the tropes are important. I call it familiarity theory. So I used to work with sales quite closely, especially at HarperCollins, and I used to go and talk to people at the sort of head office in Waterstones in London, in Piccadilly, and they'd tell me how they would position their books on not only on the shelves but also on the tables and stuff, face out, and how people would shop and how they would look at covers, and it really gave me some really good ideas about how people actually pick up books, what stops them, and how they buy. And it's the same with Amazon as well. Amazon do these sort of also boughts and if you like this, you like this kind of thing. And familiarity theory for me is that having a strong trope, such as you say, the running man, the shadow man, as they call them. Instantly what you're getting and what it is. Now, I'm not saying that everything should look the same. I mean, I think that everything has to have its own look and its own feel, but having something that sort of gives you an idea straight away, because that's how we shop. I mean, if you honest, if you go into a supermarket and you're looking for, I don't know, soap powder or whatever, they look a particular way and they use very similar colors, and that makes you pick up something very, very quickly. Like you spend nanoseconds making a decision. And when you're scrolling through Amazon or you're walking through a bookshop, you literally pick up a book and you look at the cover, and if you like it, or if it's something that you like to read and it seems familiar to you, then you'll turn over, and it's the blurb that then sells it. The book cover is just to grab your attention. But without these tropes, I think the genres would be very different. I think everything would be literary fiction, personally, if we didn't have these tropes.
Yeah.
Because literary fiction can do anything. You can do anything with a literary fiction cover. But with the other genres, the stuff that sells, then you really need to really think about how you're selling your product.
And it's amazing, actually, as you say that, it's kind of struck me how much the online bookstores have kind of mimicked what happens in the store, because with Amazon's also bought if you like this, you might also like that, and on any product page it has people who bought this item also bought this. It shows you the cover. That's the first thing you get, and you click on that, and then the first thing you see at the top of the page is the blurb for the book. So I guess that's kind of mimicked what happens in the shops. Yeah. And of course, online you've got the addition of things like reader reviews and various other things there that you can see, which aren't always on the back of books. So it's quite interesting, isn't it? That even though that's a kind of a psychological thing that's been used for years and years, for decades, even though we're kind of in this brave new world online, we're actually just mimicking what we've known for years.
Yeah, we've just made it faster. That's it. It's exactly the same process, and you can like it either. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, or bus fares or anything like that, or standing on the tube or crushed with about 1,000 people. That's true. And I think the thing that's interesting about people like Amazon, whether you love them or you hate them, is that they've really condensed down the shopping experience about how people actually buy and how they look at things and how they research things. Because everyone does, and everyone does it now anyway. We have if you see something you like, you'll have a quick look online to see what the reviews are and that sort of thing. And it's just a very similar process to how we've been shopping in stores and stuff. I mean, Waterstones and people like that, they spend hours and hours and hours thinking about these things. And the same with Amazon, their algorithms, they've spent a long time thinking about these things. So why you wouldn't want to use them to your advantage to sell your books, I don't know. It just makes sense. They've done all that research and spent all that money. So you might as well use their information.
I think a lot of people don't realise how important books covers are.
Yeah. No, well, it's one of those things when, this is my life, and it has been for well over, almost getting up to a decade and a half. And I speak to a lot of authors and stuff. So, I speak to you all the time. And
sorry about that.
So go back and forth. No, I'm joking. Yeah. the thing that's interesting is that whenever I tell anyone that is outside of this industry, which is, it's still a very small industry, they have no idea what a book cover designer is. If I'm asked in a hairdresser's, what do you do, and I say I'm a book cover designer, I actually hate saying it because they look at me like, well, what's that? I think sometimes they're thinking, what's a book? And then they go, and then there's a cover, and you designed those. But it's. Yeah. I don't know what to say to that, really.
I think it's something about the industry, because I'm the same when people ask me what I do. Just this week we've had new flooring put in our house, and the guy just sort of made a comment, said, "Oh, you got the week off, have you?" I said, "No." I said, "Well, I work from home actually." And he said, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I just get this kind of inward cringe. I'm not quite sure why it is. I think it's just something we have in this industry. I think because it's kind of part of the entertainment industry, and it's not, we're not producing anything for the national good. I wonder if maybe that's part of it. But the way I always look at it is that, when people are hard at work during the day doing a proper job, when they get home they want good books to read, they want good series to watch on Netflix, and that's where we come in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, it's a freelance thing as well. People look at people who work from home, or and I've had it. I mean, I've been freelance on and off. I had a 4-year stint, and then I went back in house, and I've been freelance again now for about 3 years. And I think even when you're doing well, people still think, yeah, but what have you got to fall back on at some point? When it all stops. And don't get me wrong, I do think about those days when it all stops, but you just sort of march on, and it is a job. I work probably harder now than I ever did. So, but yeah, no, it's funny. It is funny, and I cringe all the time. I cringe all the time when I have to say what I do, because if an author, at least everyone knows what an author is.
I mean, I thought, years ago, I looked forward and I thought, if I get to this stage, or if I've even had, half of the success, I'll be so proud to tell people. But it's just not the case. It's just not changed on that front. Very bizarre, anyway. Yeah. But talking about, you've been in the industry for a long time, as you say. You've got to have some juicy anecdotes, haven't you? So no names.
Yeah.
No names, no identification, but I imagine you must get some interesting conversations, some interesting comments from authors when you're looking to design covers for them.
Yes, well, it's actually working in house tends to be where all the big, the more of the stories come from, because you have so many other departments and other people who are involved and stuff. But you hear some things sitting in sales meetings and things, especially cover art meetings. So once a week, all book cover designers have to submit their covers for the week for the books that are coming up in the next 6 months to a year. So they do it way in advance. Sometimes the book isn't even written; there's just a synopsis, and it's the meeting that you dread. And usually, it used to be just your art director would go with someone there to take notes, and then the book covers would be shown. And then someone had the idea that we should all go and sort of stand there and watch our work be ripped up in front of us, and it's not nice at all ever. And I remember being in those meetings, and you'd hear sales directors say things that you would just think, "What are you talking about?" I'd have people say, "Well, no, that's green. No, green doesn't sell. We can't have a book that's green." And I used to think, well, that doesn't make any sense, because there'd be books behind them on shelves that were green, and they would, and then sometimes they wouldn't even look at that design in another color, because it was green at one point. It's stuck in their heads, and they would never say. And they'd say things like brown covers don't sell, which maybe they don't because they don't print very well. But green, almost every sports book is green, and it has been, forever.
Well, I'm looking at my bookshelf over to my right-hand side, and jumping out at me is a lime green spine with Peter James in massive letters on the side.
Well,
and
exactly.
He books, doesn't he?
He sent a couple, I think. But yeah, no, I mean, the stories tend to be around the sort of chaos of, especially around cover design, about the going back and forth. for an author I worked for, a really big author. I remember being sent an email conversation where they were discussing. So I was designing the series, and they were discussing some of the ideas. And as a designer, especially in house, you don't get a lot of input. You design and you get given feedback, and you can suggest things sometimes, but more often than not, you're out of the conversation. And so there was this massive reams and reams and reams. You go down this list of this email, and there would be people discussing the minutiae of this cover and the direction, all sorts of things. And then at some point it said, we should probably send this to the author. Oh yeah, I'll get his feedback. So they sent it, and there was all of this feedback that they'd been written, all the sales feedback and everything. And at the end, the author just said, I think it looks good. And that was it. And I thought, could you not have sent it to them like right at the beginning? Like rather than like worry and all these weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And then you'd get to that point. I mean, there's on the flip side of that, there was, of course, you would get things that would be you'd spend months designing these covers, and then it would actually finally get sent to the author, and the author would absolutely hate it, and then you'd have to start again. Or worse, it would get sent to WH Smith's, and they would say, no, we don't like it. And that was it. That's all. That it was just enough for them to say, no, we don't like it. And then you would have to start the whole process again. And this time with less. This probably aren't as juicy as you probably want them to be, but it's from a design's perspective. These are the things that happen.
It's really interesting seeing it from this side of things. I mean, especially as someone who, I mean, I hope I'm not too picky. Occasionally there are the odd things that I like to tweak, but generally speaking, I think, I know what my specialist area is, and it's not book cover design. So I think leaving it to the experts generally tends to work best.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the thing is, I used to say that, if you get a plumber in, I mean, I'm sure there are people who do this, but you get a plumber in, you don't stand over them saying, are you sure about that? Could you actually twist the pipe the other way? Could you, do you know what I mean? Like, no one ever does things like that. You just think, they've done a really bad job.
Well,
you just
I do stand over them, I must say. I am, but only because I'm interested. if I don't know how something works, I always want to know how it works. I'm inquisitive. So
that's different, isn't it? I guess. Yeah. And I guess the other thing is, I mean, as a designer, my clients don't give me or don't offer me a cup of tea when I start working on something, which is, I guess, the difference between me and a plumber. But I do think that you do trust. It's an area where I think everyone feels they have an opinion. And when it's your book, I understand that, because I think I'd be the world's worst author in that. As a cover designer, I think if someone was designing a cover for me, I think I'd be really picky and be like, I'm not sure about that and whatever. So I don't think I'd ever be able to commission someone to design my cover for me. But I think everyone feels like they have an opinion about what works and what doesn't work. And from one of the biggest issues I think we get as cover designers is authors being because your books inside out is when they want so much narrative on the cover. Like, my character would never walk like that, and that the way that the hair is sort of fallen across their face, it just wouldn't do that, and that pimple's in the wrong place, and that sort of thing. And I mean, okay, that's maybe over exaggerating a little bit, but I have actually had people say, that her she wouldn't do that, like her eyebrows wouldn't be, she wouldn't be looking like that. And I'm like, well, what does it matter? No one else is going to look at it like that.
I mean, I never see the characters on the cover as being the characters in the book anyway. I mean, for me, I think a cover is a kind of a symbolic idea of what the book might be about. I don't assume it's a photo of a character that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my thing has always been that your reader doesn't know. Unless it's a series where they've got an idea of who the detective is, maybe, or something like that. But even then, a potential reader has no clue what your book's about. So it's not going to matter. You don't need to show that much information. Once they read it, that's when they get the information. When they read the blurb, that's when they'll get an idea of whether it's something they want to read or not. But the cover itself is just there to grab attention and tell you what the genre is and tell you who the author is and all those things. But yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask about, Stuart. No, sorry, I was just going to say one of the things that really interests me is having looked through your website and having known you for a while now. One of the things that you did, I think, when you were working, I think it might have been HarperCollins, you might have to correct me there, was designing the UK covers for Stephen King's books. Or was that Hodder?
Oh, it was at Hodder, yeah. Hodder and Stoughton, yeah.
When that job lands on your desk to design the UK covers for Stephen King's books, and there's about 20 odd of them, was that exciting? 52.
At the time, yeah.
We'll get there in the end. At least it looks like I've done my research. Is that exciting or daunting when that kind of job lands on your desk?
Well, it is daunting. Backlist stuff, you can be a little bit. It's a little bit easier only because they're not front list, so you're not. It's the sales aren't expected in the same way, so you're basically trying to create a style to do something with the backlist, and I think publishers tend to do this every so many years or so. They want to refresh everything, not only for themselves, but actually for the author, just to say, look, we are looking after your stuff. This is what we're doing. We still care. And anything, with Stephen King, if you're a big fan of Stephen King, you've probably got the books anyway, and me redesigning the covers isn't going to do a huge amount, but it would actually, potentially bring in new people. So the one thing we did with the Stephen King stuff is that we actually thought about it differently. And we thought, okay, well, it's so hard to, you run out of colors and things like that after a while, because you try and add something that makes them a little bit different each time, and things like colors and things like that can really, really help with that. And obviously spine colors and stuff. But obviously you run out after a while, especially when there's 52 books, and because everything starts to look the same. But what we did was we broke it up into sections. So we had things like the chillers. So they were things that was like The Shining and the more sort of scary kind of horror stuff they had, and then we and Carré and that kind of thing, and then we had his what was his name? He when he did the more sci-fi stuff, he changed his author name, didn't he? Richard, is it Richard? Oh God, I should probably know who he was.
I've read it on writing about 4 times and I still can't remember. It's not going to come to me today, I don't think.
No. I mean, I probably should know these things, but it was about 10 years ago when I did this.
Yeah.
And there was so many. But anyway, we broke it up into sections, and we so we had the chillers and the thrillers and the horror and that sort of thing, and we kept a similar style running through, but actually the design style of each cover used a different font. It used a different sort of style of imagery, and so what we did was you could buy a set maybe, and then you could or buy them all together, and you'd have like a really cool set on your shelves because all the colors would be different. And we linked all the colors up so that the chillers were all red, so there were different shades of red on the spines, and then we had a set that was all blue and it was really cold. And then we had the more sort of psychological horror stories that he had that were kind of greens and stuff. Anyway, it really helped me as a designer to be able to sort of think of them in sort of sets rather than as this massive like collage of book covers and how you're going to design each one separately. But that was really, really interesting. And it was a really different way of thinking for me as well, because it meant I had to sort of abandon the way I work with just one cover at a time, where I can think of all these different ideas. I really had to sort of slim that down because I didn't have the time to sort of spend on each book. I had to, and I had a wonderful picture researcher, Camilla Dowse, who worked at Hodder, who helped me with the research, and just sort of we sat there and we went through all these images and stuff to see what would work best. And I think that's the thing I think a lot of people don't realize is just the process of a book cover design. That it's not just coming up with cool ideas. You we do a ton of research about what's working, what sort of area you want to work in, and then you have in-house you have a pitch researcher. As a freelancer, you do it all yourself, but you spend the majority of your time looking for the right images, and that is the hardest part. And then, you're thinking about concepts and stuff, but you then like sort of focus in and you say, these are the sort of images I want. And when you're working on something like Stephen King, one, it has to look good. And two, you have to, with such an amount of books, you really have to cut down on all of that process so that you can get them all done within a few months. And it's just
King itself is a brand, so you've got to kind of fit in with that pre-existing 30-year-old brand anyway, haven't you?
Yeah, we gave him a slightly new brand, but really, his name and the typeface that was used for his name is fairly similar to everything that's ever been. You have to have some sort of familiarity there and a bit of nostalgia, but it was a really hard project, but it kind of, for me, it changed everything for me, because after doing that, people were like, "Oh, who's this dude?" And not long after that, I went freelance. So, I jumped on the. I saw that people were like, "Oh, there's this dude who's doing Stephen King covers and John le Carré covers, and that's cool." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, you can hire me if you like. That's cool."
Pop it in the portfolio and disappear.
Yeah.
I'm looking through your portfolio as we speak. The John le Carré cover's absolutely brilliant. We've got Francis Durbage's Paul Temple books, Stephen King, Lionel Shriver, Adam Croft. All fantastic looking covers. And genuinely, when I'm writing a book, the thing I look forward to the most now, and it used to be something I used to dread, but the thing I really look forward to the most is getting the cover through. And sometimes, as you know, I'll kind of commission a cover when I'm only partway through writing it. That can be because I'm hitting a bit of a block, or I can feel myself slowing down or kind of falling out of the book a little bit. And getting that cover can absolutely spur me on to finish. And spurring me on to finish books, speaking of which, a little birdie tells me you're currently working on your own.
Yes, that's true. I'm doing NaNoWriMo at the moment. No, kind of unsuccessfully, because I'm running a business too, and I've got a little one. She's just a year old. So
should have said it's National Novel Writing Month, in which in November every year writers are challenged to write a full novel inside a month, and it's the month of the year when Twitter and Instagram and Facebook in the author world tend to have a lot of very angry, very tired posts on them.
Yes, very sad ones and very depressed ones. And you see people. I should be about 12,000 words in by now, and I'm about 8,000. But for someone who doesn't write, I'm kind of chuffed that I've got 8,000 words done. So, but no, it's cool. It's cool. I'm doing a thriller. I've been thinking in matter of fact, the reason I got, and this is the truth, the reason I got into publishing in the first place was because I was traveling around the world when I was about 23, and I was writing, and I was trying to write a novel, and I didn't know anything. And I saw a job for, when I came back home, I saw a job at Hodder and Stoughton for an art worker. I didn't get that job. They offered me a junior job instead, because art working is super hard and you need to be you need to know what you're doing. And I thought, no, I'll take it, because maybe I'll learn stuff. And then the book disappeared, and I just became a book cover designer instead, and did that for 7 years. Anyway, the book that I had in my head, I loved mythology when I was a kid. Read it all the time, and so I thought, I want to do like a thriller, sort of set in that world where it is now, with sort of stories of folklore and myth, sort of modern telling. So the one I'm doing at the moment is sort of based on the Persephone and Hades myth. So it's cool, and it's really fun to do, and but at its heart, it's a private investigator, and it's sort of a mystery thriller, but it's really cool and it's really fun. It's probably terrible, but it's fun.
I'm sure it'll be brilliant. It will have a great cover, at least. We can pretty much guarantee that.
Well, it's one of the first things I did. It's funny because I kind of did I sort of played around with stuff just to give, as you were saying before, I wasn't sure what direction I was going and what I was going to do. And I just thought, I'll play around with something and I'll play around with some ideas and just see what I feel would be right for the cover. And maybe that will make me feel good about it and start writing. So I did that and I started writing. So it does work.
Well, NaNoWriMo is a very odd thing. It's something I've never done, mainly because every month is NaNoWriMo month for me.
Yeah, well, exactly, yeah.
I've normally got a book on, and it normally takes me about a month once I've done the planning and everything to actually get the words down. So I don't really see the point in forcing myself to do it in November. But I hope the book is a huge success. I'm sure it will be. And once it's out, we'll have to get you on and talk about blending the worlds of crime and mystery with the mythological world.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That would be wonderful. No, that's a reason enough for me to finish it, isn't it?
Absolutely. I'll on that note, I better let you get back to it.
Thank you very much. Cheers, man.
Well, that's a good thing about NaNoWriMo. At least by the end of the month, or shortly thereafter, Stuart's book should be finished. I know it's one that's been eagerly awaited by lots of people, including me, so very much looking forward to that one. You might want to check out a few books on Kobo. I strongly suggest you do. If you're new to Kobo, you can use the promo code CRIME at the checkout, and the lovely folk there will give you 90% off of your first ebook purchase. It's a great platform. You don't need one of their e-readers. You can use the free Kobo app for your smartphone, tablet, or computer as well. And if you've familiarised yourself with the platform by then hopefully in not very long at all, Stuart's new book should be out, and you'll be able to grab that for your Kobo as well. Thank you very much to Stuart for joining us on the show this week. It's been an interesting one, having to do things all on my own, although I haven't got through half as much coffee as I normally would if Mr. Dawes had been around. I believe I'm on my own next week as well. So very much the same sort of format, and then Bob will be back with us just as things start to get in towards Christmas. We've got some fantastic guests coming up. If you want to suggest any guests for the show or anything else at all, if you just want to say hello, get your name read out on the podcast, or if you want to make any suggestions for future shows, then please do. We love to make this an interactive show. We do it for you at the end of the day, don't we? So you can email us hello@Partners in Crime. You can find us on Facebook, Partners in Crime Podcast. We've got a group on Facebook now as well, which is a great way to chat to other crime fans. That's called Partners in Crime. See if you can find that. We're on Twitter @CrimeFicPodcast. And our website is partnersincrime.online. I think that will do for this week. I'm going to go and have a lie down in a dark room and prepare myself for solo duties again next week.
Partners in Crime was presented by Adam Croft.
Not the other one.
And produced by Adam Croft. The theme tune was by the Caesareans. The Partners in Crime logo and imagery were designed by Stuart Bache. Partners in Crime is sponsored by Kobo, your favourite local bookshop, perfected.